Everybody might actually be on steroids. Today, I wanted to see if there's actually any merit to this statement.
Everybody's on steroids.
For the longest time, I was skeptical of this statement just because I've witnessed what USADA did to UFC fighters. Look at Alistair Overeem, Vitor Belfort, Johnny Hendricks. The list goes on for fighters that melted post-USADA. And for a while, I thought because of the stringent and random testing, USADA really couldn't be beat until I researched for and made this video. See, because of Paulo Costa's physique and secret juice, Kamaru Usman's Colby-proclaimed title of the CEO of EPO, and the extreme gyno of Israel Adesanya, I had to look into these claims myself. And I'm not saying necessarily any of these guys are juicing, but they definitely bring up some red flags, and today we'll go over some ways fighters may or may not be cheating the system. Like I said before, I thought USADA was this unstoppable force that fighters could not beat. For those who don't know, the UFC adopted the United States Anti-Doping Agency, or USADA, back in 2015 to provide comprehensive drug testing for its fighters. And one special thing about this program is that when a fighter is in the USADA pool, there is never an off season for testing, and they are subject to testing 24/7, 365. Paulo Costa and other UFC fighters have described USADA coming into their residence at early hours in the morning to test them without warning, and most famously, they've popped TJ Dillashaw for using EPO, and they've also popped John Jones multiple times for using turinabol and other banned substances. And they've practically gotten rid of the Brock Lesnars and Ubereems of the sport, and though this sounds great and all, there are still some loopholes in the program that fighters may exploit. One of these exploits has to do with location. Not only does USADA test you anytime, they say they test you anywhere. However, some people have claimed that places like Thailand and Russia are these test havens that USADA do not go to. In a great survey created by The Athletic given to UFC fighters to gauge the effectiveness of USADA, one UFC fighter said that there are people who live in Russia and aren't tested. There are people who go to Thailand and aren't tested. It's a way of bypassing the anti-doping testing. That's the truth. Everybody who goes to Russia, to Thailand to do camps, they do it to dope, to take steroids. And though this is a very popular theory amongst fans and fighters, I really haven't seen any merit to this claim. For example, Petr Yan, who happens to be a Russian fighter who trains in Thailand a lot, has been tested by USADA in Thailand. And though not confirmed to be in Russia, many Russian fighters have been tested out of competition, meaning most likely USADA did travel to Russia where they reside when out of competition/camp, and some have actually been banned for testing positive. Additionally, last year Islam Makhachev was tested 10 times, and I doubt all 10 times were just in the United States alone. Even though he is associated with AKA, which is an American-based mixed martial arts gym, he still heavily trains in his home of Dagestan, and considering those tests were spread out evenly throughout the year, most of them had to have been in Russia. And though this theory of fighters going to these test havens such as Thailand and Russia seems to probably not be true, this next exploit that relates to location seems definitely more plausible. Whereabouts is the locational information a fighter gives to USADA to help the agency track where they are at all times. However, there seems to be some loopholes. In this clip, GSP claims that fighters can lie about their whereabouts and say they are in some believable location for a short period of time. In that time, whatever PED they use clears from the body, or at least can't be detected, though the effects continue to last for months.
Okay, let's say I have a whereabout on my phone. It's not 100% sure, but let's say I want to have an injection of a product that will last in my body for 2 days or 1 day. Mm-hmm. So I know that particular day I cannot be tested, because if I am, I'm screwed.
Right.
So I put my whereabout that I'm traveling to the freaking
Antarctica.
Antarctica, or anywhere, like somewhere that is
crazy,
believable.
Yeah.
And then I come back in two days after. But that substance will stay in my body for a certain period of time, but the effect of it will last maybe a month.
Many fans think this is what UFC heavyweight Josh Barnett did when he claimed he was quote-unquote backpacking in Europe. There's a video that juxtaposed what Josh Barnett says in his Joe Rogan podcast with what GSP said earlier in his Joe Rogan clip, and the parallels are very striking.
On my whereabout that I'm
backpacking all through Europe, going from place to place to place.
Or anywhere, like somewhere that is
crazy,
believable.
Yeah.
Because I could be on a train moving here, moving there.
And then I come back in two days after. But that substance will stay in my body for a certain period of time.
And really, you don't even have to lie about your whereabouts, as USADA has given fighters 3 whereabout failures, or 3 times a fighter can fail to give their whereabouts before actually giving any punishment to a fighter. So in a worst case scenario, fighters can use one of these failures. Now moving on from location, we go into the actual substances, and there are performance enhancing drugs that have a very low detection window that is practically impossible for USADA to test in. One such substance is human growth hormone, or HGH, or just GH. This is a hormone that is naturally produced in the body and promotes growth. However, when an athlete injects more into their system externally, HGH can promote lean body mass and muscle mass production and can make them injury resistant to levels that would have not been possible naturally. And the big problem with HGH is its very low detection window. Some have claimed HGH has as little as a 4-hour detection window, while most papers estimate the window is about 12 to 48 hours. Whatever the case may be, the window is not likely to coincide with a USADA test, as the average fighter is tested only 5 times out of the year. And if a fighter doesn't feel like taking a gamble that's already in their favor, they can again use whereabouts to lie and secure the 2 days needed for HGH to clear their system. EPO is another big one in the UFC, as infamously TJ Dillashaw tested positive for it after getting knocked out by Henry Cejudo. Erythropoietin, or EPO, stimulates the production of red blood cells and increases the amount of oxygen the body can hold, which can allow UFC fighters to have better endurance both in the gym and in an actual fight. And one special trait with EPO, like many other substances, is that it can be microdosed. According to Tyler Hamilton, a former American cyclist, he claims in his book on doping in cycling during the Lance Armstrong days that cyclists would microdose on EPO several days with low dosages instead of one big day, making the glow time, or time to detect EPO, very small. And we haven't even talked about designer steroids yet. As the name suggests, designer steroids are specifically designed for a particular fighter to reap the benefits of the steroid while circumventing a positive drug test result. See, USADA can only do so much. They can really only test a set of known banned substances, and it's practically impossible to test for these specifically designed steroids/drugs. The drug designers in a fighter's corner and USADA are in an arms race, and it seems like USADA is losing considering the wide range of designer drugs that could be out there. And this trend of designer drugs isn't necessarily limited to just the UFC, but is definitely prevalent in other sports, especially to those athletes who have much more money than the guys in the UFC. And finally, we come to the last resort. Say somehow you run out of whereabout failures, you run out of places to lie about your whereabouts, USADA so happens to test you in the small window some drug you took is still detectable, and you pop. It's over, right? Well, you can always make the tainted supplements claim. John Jones, Yoel Romero, Nate Diaz, Sean O'Malley, the list goes on for fighters who have claimed their positive USADA tests were a result of a tainted supplement. In some cases, USADA has ruled them to be correct. Famously, the banned substance found in John Jones was also found in sex pills he used and was given a smaller ban and was labeled not a cheater by USADA. More recently, Yoel Romero was awarded $27 million in a lawsuit against a supplement company when residue of a banned substance was found in their product, and subsequently his ban was shortened. Now, I'm not saying any of those guys willingly cheated, but the tainted supplements argument can and is probably used by fighters that have cheated willingly. So as long as they can prove that some supplement they used had the banned substance, they can possibly get a lighter ban if they can prove this to the panel of USADA and be labeled not a cheater. All in all, I think USADA got rid of the more obvious cases of doping, like the stuff that was making Brock Lesnar's head grow. However, this has consequently led to much more subtle forms of cheating. From microdosing to designer drugs to manipulating whereabouts, fighters have found ways to cheat despite what looks like stringent testing. And after all this research, it's definitely changed my view on USADA, and considering the incentives of cheating and the resources modern fighters have, I do think there is some merit to
everybody's on steroids.
I also wanted to add that this video is just a short and brief sneak peek of the possible ways fighters are bypassing USADA. If you want to see a much more in-depth video, I suggest checking out the videos Derek from More Plates, More Dates did on UFC fighters. And again, thank you for supporting and watching my videos. I also want to hear your guys' thoughts on the steroid situation in the UFC and if it's possible to bypass USADA. Peace.